can I tell you something that might sting a little? You've been free for a while now, but you're still living like a slave, not to Egypt, but to anxiety, to the need to control, to the lie that if you don't stay awake worrying, everything will fall apart. The Israelites were the same way. Even after I delivered them, they kept wanting to go back to Egypt because slavery, as awful as it was, felt familiar. Freedom was terrifying. Tonight, as the story of Exodus washes over you, I want to do something deeper than help you sleep. I want to deliver you from the mental chains you don't even realize you're wearing. Real rest isn't just closing your eyes. It's finally trusting that I'm God and you're not. Let's begin that journey together. You've tried everything to sleep, haven't you? Meditation apps, breathing exercises, sleep medication, counting sheep, even other Bible verses. You've downloaded the apps with the ocean sounds and the rain falling on leaves. You've tried the 10-minute guided meditations and the progressive muscle relaxation. Maybe you've even tried prescription pills that left you groggy the next morning, feeling like you traded one problem for another. But here's what you haven't tried: actually trusting the entire narrative arc of how I work in human lives. Not just a verse here and a promise there, but the whole story. The full journey from bondage to freedom, from slavery to the promised land, from fear to rest. Most people approach sleep like it's something they have to achieve, like it's a test they might fail. They try to force rest, control their thoughts, manufacture peace. They lie there rehearsing tomorrow's conversations, replaying today's mistakes, calculating budgets in their head, worrying about their kids, their health, their job, their future. They treat sleep like a mountain they have to climb through sheer willpower. But that's the slave mindset talking, the belief that everything depends on your effort, your vigilance, your constant management of every detail. The belief that if you let your guard down for even one night, everything will crumble. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Sleep is surrender, not achievement. And the book of Exodus is the ultimate manual on what happens when you finally let go and let me lead. This isn't another 10 verses for anxiety compilation. This isn't a quick fix or a spiritual band-aid. This is the full, unrushed story of how I took a terrified, traumatized people from bondage to freedom, not through their strength, but through mine. As you listen tonight, you'll hear the rhythm of divine provision, manna every morning, water from rocks, my presence as a cloud by day and fire by night. You'll internalize the pattern. I show up, I provide, I protect, I lead, you follow, you rest. What makes this different from everything else you've tried? Instead of trying to calm yourself down, you'll be drawn into a story where someone else, me, is already handling everything. The anxiety that keeps you awake comes from the illusion that you're in control. That illusion is exhausting. It's killing you, slowly, one sleepless night at a time. This story dismantles that illusion gently, scene by scene, until your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, and you remember the truth. I'm God. You're safe. Sleep is allowed. Here's my promise to you tonight. By the time this story completes, you won't just be asleep. You'll have internalized the truth that you're not enslaved to your worries anymore. You're being led to rest. And maybe, just maybe, you'll wake up tomorrow morning remembering that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Because I already am. So close your eyes now. Settle into this moment. Get comfortable. Pull the covers up around you. Let your body sink into the mattress. Tonight, you're not just hearing words. You're being carried into a story that's older than kingdoms, deeper than philosophy, and more powerful than any force that's keeping you awake right now. This is the story of Exodus. But more than that, it's your story. It's the story of every person who's ever felt trapped, exhausted, overwhelmed, and desperate for someone to come rescue them. And I'm here to tell you, rescue is coming. Deliverance is here. Freedom is possible. And it starts tonight, with you finally letting go. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to a time when my people were slaves in Egypt. For 400 years, they labored under the hot sun, making bricks without straw, building monuments to someone else's glory. 400 years, that's not just a long time. That's generational trauma. That's great-great-great-grandparents who never knew freedom, passing down survival strategies to children who would never know anything different. That's entire lifetimes spent in bondage, where hope becomes a dangerous thing to hold on to because it hurts too much when nothing changes. Can you imagine waking up every single day knowing exactly what your life will look like? The same backbreaking work, the same cruel taskmasters, the same hopelessness. No weekend to look forward to, no vacation days, no retirement plan. Just endless labor until your body gives out, and then watching your children step into the same chains. 400 years of that. 400 years of crying out to me, wondering if I was even listening, wondering if I'd forgotten them, wondering if maybe those Egyptian gods were more powerful after all. But I hadn't forgotten. I never forget. I was watching every moment, counting every tear, recording every cry, and I was waiting, not because I didn't care, not because I was indifferent to their suffering, but because I was preparing the perfect moment for deliverance. You see, I don't just rescue people from their circumstances. I rescue them into something new, and that takes time. That takes preparation. That requires the right person in the right place at the right moment in history. Enter Moses, born Hebrew but raised Egyptian, a man caught between two worlds, a man who knew what it felt like to be both the oppressor and the oppressed. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace, wearing fine linens, eating royal food, receiving the best education Egypt had to offer. But he knew his real identity. He knew he was Hebrew, and one day, that identity conflict came to a head. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, his own people, and something inside him snapped. He killed the Egyptian. He buried him in the sand, and then he ran. He ran as far and as fast as he could, all the way to the wilderness of Midian. And there, in that wilderness, he became a shepherd. A prince of Egypt became a keeper of sheep. He married a woman named Zipporah. He had children. He settled into a quiet, ordinary life, tending his father-in-law's flocks, day after day, year after year, leading sheep to pasture, protecting them from predators, guiding them to water. It was humble work, anonymous work, the kind of work nobody writes songs about. And Moses probably thought this was it. This was his life now. He'd blown his chance to be somebody important. He was just a fugitive shepherd in the middle of nowhere, and he would die that way. But I had other plans. Because you see, that wilderness wasn't a punishment, it was a classroom. For 40 years, Moses learned patience. He learned humility. He learned what it meant to lead vulnerable creatures who couldn't protect themselves. He learned to recognize danger before it arrived. He learned to find water in dry places. He learned to trust his instincts and follow the subtle signs of the landscape. He didn't know it, but he was being trained, prepared, shaped into the exact person I would need for the most important rescue operation in history. One day, Moses was doing what he did every day, leading the sheep to the far side of the wilderness, to a mountain called Horeb. There was nothing special about this day. He wasn't fasting or praying or seeking a spiritual experience. He was just working, just doing his job. And then he saw it, a bush, on fire, burning bright in the afternoon sun. But here's what made him stop and turn aside. The bush wasn't being consumed. The flames danced and crackled, but the branches weren't turning to ash. The leaves weren't withering. It was burning. But it wasn't burning up. And when Moses turned aside to look at this strange sight, I spoke. My voice came from the middle of the fire. Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And I said, Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals. The ground you're standing on is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at me. Let me pause here for a moment, because this is important for you tonight. Moses was going about his ordinary life when I showed up. He wasn't in a church. He wasn't at a religious ceremony. He wasn't trying to have a spiritual moment. He was at work, in the wilderness, probably dusty and tired and thinking about dinner. And that's when I interrupted everything. Because that's how I work. I show up in the middle of your ordinary exhausted life. You don't need to be special. You don't need to have it all together. You don't need to clean yourself up first. You just need to be present. You just need to turn aside and pay attention when I speak. And here's what I said to Moses. I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Did you catch that? I have seen. I have heard. I am concerned. I have come down. I wasn't distant. I wasn't indifferent. I wasn't ignoring their pain. I was watching every moment, waiting for the perfect time to move. And now the time had come. So I'm sending you to Pharaoh, I told Moses, to bring my people out of Egypt. And Moses, understandably, panicked. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm a shepherd. I'm a murderer. I'm a fugitive. I'm not qualified for this. And I said something that Moses needed to hear. Something you need to hear tonight. I will be with you. You don't need to be qualified. You don't need to be capable. You don't need to be strong enough, or smart enough, or brave enough. Because I will be with you. And when I'm with you, that changes everything. But Moses wasn't convinced. He kept making excuses. What if they don't believe me? What if they won't listen to me? I've never been a good speaker. I'm slow of speech and tongue. Please send someone else. And I was patient with him, answering every objection, providing every sign he needed. I turned his staff into a snake and back again. I made his hand leprous and then healthy. I promised to give him his brother Aaron to speak for him. I didn't get angry at his fear. I didn't condemn him for his doubts. I just kept reassuring him. I will help you speak. I will teach you what to say. I will be with you. Finally, Moses went. He took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and headed back to Egypt, the place he'd fled from 40 years earlier. He was terrified, I'm sure, but he went. Because sometimes obedience isn't the absence of fear. It's taking the next step even though you're shaking. When Moses arrived in Egypt, he gathered all the elders of Israel and told them everything I had said. And they believed. When they heard that I had seen their misery and was concerned about them, they bowed down and worshipped. After 400 years of silence, finally there was hope. Finally there was a word from me. Finally, someone was coming to help. But Pharaoh wasn't interested in letting them go. Moses and Aaron went before him and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, let my people go so they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh laughed. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." In fact, he made their work even harder. He stopped providing straw for making bricks, but still demanded the same quota. The Israelites had to gather their own straw, and still produce the same number of bricks every day. It was impossible. And the people turned on Moses. "You've made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials. You've put a sword in their hand to kill us. What were you thinking?" And Moses, discouraged and confused, came to me. "Why, Lord? Why have you brought trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people. And you have not rescued your people at all. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever taken a step of faith, done what you thought I was asking you to do, and then watched everything get worse instead of better? Have you ever cried out, 'God, I trusted you, and now everything's falling apart? Where are you? Why aren't you fixing this?'" Moses was there, standing in the gap between my promise and its fulfillment, watching the people suffer more and wondering if he'd heard me wrong. But I said to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, he will let them go. Because of my mighty hand, he will drive them out of his country. I am the Lord." I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty. But by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself fully known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, where they resided as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore, say to the Israelites, "I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. I will bring you out. I will free you. I will redeem you. I will take you as my own. I will be your God." 7 promises, 7 I wills. Not you will, not you must. Not if you do this, then I'll do that. Just I will. Because deliverance was never about their strength. It was about mine. And then came the plagues, 10 of them, one after another, each one more devastating than the last. Water turned to blood, frogs everywhere, gnats, flies, livestock dying, boils breaking out on people and animals, hail destroying crops, locusts eating everything that remained, darkness so thick you could feel it. And with each plague, Pharaoh would say, "Okay, you can go." And then he'd change his mind. "Okay, just the men can go." "No, wait, stay." His heart kept hardening. He kept refusing. And the people of Israel watched and waited, probably wondering if I was really going to come through, probably getting their hopes up and then having them crushed, over and over. But I was building to something, the final plague, the one that would finally break Pharaoh's grip, the death of the firstborn. Every firstborn son in Egypt would die in a single night, from Pharaoh's palace to the prisoner's dungeon, from the wealthy Egyptian households to the livestock in the fields. Every firstborn. It was going to be a night of mourning, unlike anything Egypt had ever experienced. But my people, they would be protected. I gave Moses specific instructions. On the 10th day of this month, each family is to take a lamb for themselves, a lamb without defect. Keep it until the 14th day, and then slaughter it at twilight. Take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where you eat the lamb. That same night, roast the meat over fire and eat it with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Eat it in haste, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Be ready to leave. Because this is the Lord's Passover. On that night, I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn, both people and animals. And I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. Can you imagine that night? The Israelites gathered in their homes, the blood painted on their doorframes, eating the Passover meal with their bags packed, their shoes on, ready to run. Outside, they could hear it beginning. The cry went up from Pharaoh's palace and spread through every street. Egypt's gods had been judged. Egypt's power had been broken. And in the midst of death, all around them, the Israelites stood untouched, protected, saved by the blood on their doors. And Pharaoh, broken and grieving, summoned Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night. Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites, go, worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds, and go. And also bless me. The man who had mocked me and refused to acknowledge me was now begging for a blessing, because he'd learned what everyone eventually learns. I am the Lord, and there is no other. The Israelites left in haste, just as I'd instructed. They took their dough before the yeast was added, carrying it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. They asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold, and for clothing. And I made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward them, so they gave them what they asked for. The Israelites plundered Egypt. The slaves who had built Egypt's monuments for 400 years walked away rich, compensated for generations of unpaid labor in a single night. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. A mixed multitude also went up with them, along with large droves of livestock. They baked unleavened bread from the dough they had brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened. They had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves. After 430 years, to the very day, all my people left Egypt. It was a night to be observed, a night to remember, the night of deliverance, the night everything changed. Let me pause here and let this sink into your spirit as you rest tonight. The Passover wasn't just a historical event. It's a picture of how I work in your life. The blood on the doorposts. It's about protection through obedience. It's about trust. It's about believing that when I say, do this and you'll be safe, I mean it. You don't have to understand the full plan. You don't have to see how it all works out. You just have to put the blood on the door. You just have to trust that when I say I will protect you, I will. And tonight, as you sleep, my protection covers you. Not because you earned it, not because you're perfect, not because you did everything right today, but because you're mine. You belong to me. The destroyer passes over. You are safe. Whatever you're afraid of, financial ruin, relationship breakdown, health crisis, the future, I am standing between you and it. I am your shield. I am your defense. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of that truth. You are protected. Now the Israelites were free. Finally, after 430 years, they were walking away from Egypt. Can you imagine the emotion? The elderly people who never thought they'd live to see this day, weeping as they walked. The children asking their parents, "Where are we going? What happens now?" The young adults, raised in slavery, suddenly having to figure out what freedom even means. This was it, the moment they'd been praying for, and it was overwhelming. But I didn't just set them free and wish them luck. I led them. By day, I went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way. By night, I was there in a pillar of fire to give them light, so they could travel by day or night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night never left its place in front of the people. Think about that. I didn't give them a map and say, "Good luck, figure it out." I personally led them, every step, every mile, every decision about which direction to go. I made it for them. They just had to follow the cloud, follow the fire. They didn't need to know the full route. They didn't need to understand the strategy. They just needed to keep their eyes on my presence and walk. And this is what you need to understand tonight, as your mind starts to slow down and your body starts to relax. You don't need to have the next 10 years figured out. You don't need to know how everything is going to work out. You just need to follow me today, just this moment. I am the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. I don't sleep. I don't take breaks. I'm always watching, always guiding, always protecting. So you can rest. You can close your eyes. You can stop trying to figure everything out. I've got this. I've got you. When Pharaoh let the people go, I did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. Why? Because I knew if they faced war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. Their bodies were free, but their minds were still enslaved. They weren't ready for conflict yet. They needed time. They needed to learn to trust me in easier situations before I brought them into harder ones. So I led them around by the desert road toward the Red Sea, the long way, the wilderness way, the way that seemed inefficient but was actually exactly what they needed. Does that sound familiar? Have you ever wondered why I'm taking you the long way? Why the direct route seems closed? Why there are detours and delays and unexpected paths? It's because I know what you can handle and what you can't. I know what will break you and what will build you. I know the battles you're not ready for yet. So, I take you around. I lead you through the wilderness, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Trust the route I'm choosing, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it seems longer than necessary. I know what I'm doing. The Israelites camped by the Red Sea. And then Pharaoh, his heart hardened again. He said, "What have we done? What have we let Israel go?" And lost their services. So he took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. He pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops pursued them and caught up with them as they camped by the sea. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians, marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to me, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Isn't that just like us? Just like you? One minute we're celebrating freedom. The next minute, when things get hard, we're romanticizing the very slavery we begged to be delivered from. At least in Egypt, we knew what to expect. At least in Egypt, we had food. Sure, we were slaves, but at least we were alive. Fear makes us forget. Fear makes us rewrite history. Fear makes slavery look safe and freedom look dangerous. But Moses said to the people, 'Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You need only to be still.'" What a word for you tonight. You need only to be still. Stop thrashing. Stop panicking. Stop trying to figure out the escape route on your own. Stand firm. Watch. I'm about to do something you couldn't do if you had 1,000 years to try. The Lord will fight for you. This isn't your battle. It's mine. You just need to be still. Then I said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move forward. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." There's a time to stand still and watch. And then, there's a time to move forward in obedience. Both require trust. Standing still requires trusting that I'll act. Moving forward requires trusting that when I say go, the way will open. Moses raised his staff, and I sent a strong east wind to blow all that night, turning the sea into dry land. The waters divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. A wall of water, held in place by my power. They walked through on dry ground. Where there was no path, I made a path. Where there was no way, I made a way. The Egyptians pursued them into the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen. But during the last watch of the night, I looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. I jammed the wheels of their chariots so that they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then I said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and I swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. The thing that had enslaved them for 400 years was gone, destroyed, drowned in the same sea that had saved them. And here's what I want you to understand as you drift towards sleep. Whatever has enslaved you, anxiety, addiction, abuse, shame, guilt, fear, it's drowning tonight. I'm not just helping you manage it. I'm not just giving you coping strategies. I'm destroying it. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. That's my promise. That old version of yourself that believed you had to control everything, drowned. That voice that says you're not enough, silenced. That fear that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., I'm swallowing it in the sea. On that day, I saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand I displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared me and put their trust in me and in Moses my servant. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to me: "I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength. He has become my salvation." Freedom produced worship. Deliverance produced song. When you finally understand what I've saved you from, you can't help but sing. You can't help but praise. Even now, as you lie here in the dark, your heart is beginning to soften. Your chest is beginning to loosen. The tight knot of anxiety is beginning to unravel because you're remembering you're not doing this alone. I am your strength. I am your defense. I have become your salvation. But the journey wasn't over. Freedom is one thing. Learning to live in freedom is another. The Israelites walked into the desert of Shur for 3 days without finding water. When they came to Marah, they couldn't drink the water there because it was bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" 3 days. 3 days of freedom, and they were already complaining, already doubting, already forgetting the Red Sea miracle. Moses cried out to me, and I showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. I tested them there. I said, "If you listen carefully to my voice and do what is right in my eyes, if you pay attention to my commands and keep all my decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. I am the Lord who heals you. Not I was, not I will be. I am." Present tense, right now, tonight. As you rest, I'm healing you. The bitterness in your life, I'm throwing in the wood. I'm making it sweet. The disease of worry, the sickness of striving, the infection of insomnia, I am the Lord who heals you. Let that truth wash over you. I am healing you right now. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water, from bitter water to abundant springs, from complaint to comfort. That's the pattern with me. I don't just solve the immediate problem. I lead you to a place of abundance, to rest, to shade, to more than enough. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, and the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. They said, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Notice the distortion? In Egypt, they were slaves, making bricks without straw. Now they're free, and suddenly they remember pots of meat and all the food they wanted? That's what fear does. It rewrites history. It makes the past look better than it was, and the future look worse than it will be. They were sure they were going to starve. Sure, I'd brought them out to the desert to die. Sure, this whole freedom thing was a mistake. But I said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions." This is important. Listen carefully as your breathing slows and deepens. I didn't say, "I'll give you a year's supply." I didn't say, "Here's your retirement plan." I said, "Enough for that day, each day, daily bread," because I wasn't just providing food. I was teaching trust. I was teaching dependence. I was teaching them to live one day at a time. That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost appeared on the desert floor. The Israelites looked at it and said to each other, "What is it?" Because they didn't know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. Manna, bread from heaven. It appeared every morning with the dew. It tasted like wafers made with honey. And I gave them specific instructions. Each one is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent." Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had just enough. But some didn't trust. They kept more than they needed for that day, even though Moses told them not to. And by morning it was full of maggots and began to smell. See, you can't hoard my provision. You can't stockpile grace. You can't save up peace for future anxieties. It spoils. It rots. It becomes a burden instead of a blessing. You have to receive what you need today and trust that I'll provide again tomorrow. However, on the 6th day, they were to gather twice as much, because the 7th day was a Sabbath, a day of rest. On the Sabbath, no manna appeared. They were to rest. And here's the beautiful thing: the manna they gathered on the 6th day didn't spoil. When they kept it for the Sabbath, it stayed fresh. Because I honor rest, I protect rest, I provide for rest. For 40 years, the Israelites ate manna, 40 years of daily bread from heaven, 40 years of waking up to provision they didn't plant, didn't harvest, didn't earn. It was grace in the form of food. It was mercy that tasted like honey. And every single morning, it was a reminder: I'm here. I see you. I will feed you. You're not alone. This is what I want you to carry into your sleep tonight and into your waking life tomorrow. You're worried about provision. You're worried about whether there will be enough money, enough time, enough energy, enough opportunity, enough love. You're lying here at night doing the math, trying to figure out how it's all going to work out. But I'm whispering to you the same thing I whispered to Israel in the wilderness. Tomorrow's provision comes tomorrow. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. You just have to gather what you need for today, and then trust that when morning comes, the manna will appear again. The Israelites moved on from the desert of Sin and camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. Again they quarreled with Moses. "Give us water to drink," they demanded. Moses said, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But they were thirsty, and they grumbled against Moses. "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Moses cried out to me, "What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me." And I said, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." Moses struck the rock with his staff, and water gushed out. Water from a rock. In the middle of the desert. Water where there should be no water. Provision where there should be no provision. Because that's what I do. I bring streams in the wasteland. I make springs flow in the desert. I provide in impossible situations. Your dry season isn't the end of you. Your wilderness isn't a death sentence. I'm about to strike the rock. I'm about to make water flow. Just wait. Just watch. Just trust. 3 months after the Israelites left Egypt, they came to the desert of Sinai. They camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Moses went up to me, and I called to him from the mountain. "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. I carried you on eagle's wings." That's the phrase I want you to hold on to as you drift deeper into rest. You didn't walk out of Egypt on your own strength. You didn't navigate the wilderness by your own wisdom. You didn't part the Red Sea by your own power. I carried you. The whole time, even when you were stumbling and complaining and doubting, I was carrying you on eagle's wings, strong, sure, safe, and I'm carrying you tonight. You think you're lying here alone in the dark, but you're being held, supported, lifted. You're on eagle's wings. You're being carried to myself, not just to a destination, to me, to relationship, to intimacy, to knowing me and being known by me. That's the whole point of this journey. That's why I brought you out. That's why I'm leading you through the wilderness. Not just to give you a better life, but to give you myself. Then I descended to the mountain in fire. The whole mountain trembled violently. The sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Moses spoke, and I answered him in thunder. I called Moses to the top of the mountain, and he went up. And there, in the cloud and fire and smoke, I gave him the law, the 10 Commandments, the instructions for life, the boundaries for freedom. Because real freedom isn't the absence of rules, it's the presence of the right ones. It's knowing how to live in a way that protects you and blesses you and leads to flourishing. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. That's the first one, the foundational one. Because every other commandment flows from this. If I'm your God, if I'm your ultimate allegiance, if I'm your source and your authority, then everything else falls into place. But if you put other things in my place, money, success, approval, control, comfort, then you'll end up enslaved to them. You'll end up right back in Egypt, just with different taskmasters. You shall not make for yourself an image, because I can't be reduced to a statue or a formula or a system. I'm bigger than your categories. I'm beyond your ability to contain or control. You can't put me in a box. You can't manipulate me with rituals. You can't manage me with religious performance. I'm God, and you're not. And that's actually good news. Because if you could control me, I wouldn't be big enough to save you. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Because my name is sacred. My name is powerful. My name represents my character, my reputation, my very essence. Don't throw it around carelessly. Don't invoke me to justify your own agenda. Don't drag my name through the mud by claiming to represent me while living in a way that contradicts everything I am. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. This is the one I think you need most right now. The command to rest. Not a suggestion, a command. Because rest isn't laziness. Rest is trust. Rest is worship. Rest is declaring that the world doesn't depend on you. That I can handle things while you sleep. That your worth isn't determined by your productivity. Honor your father and your mother. Because family matters. Relationships matter. The people who raised you and shaped you deserve respect. Even when they're imperfect. Even when they let you down. Because honoring them isn't about excusing their failures. It's about recognizing their humanity and choosing not to let bitterness poison your heart. You shall not murder. Because life is sacred. Every person is made in my image. Every human being has inherent worth and dignity. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies. You don't get to play God with someone else's existence. And this includes the small murders too, the character assassinations, the words that kill someone's spirit, the hatred that destroys from the inside out. You shall not commit adultery. Because covenant matters, faithfulness matters. When you make a promise, you keep it. When you commit to someone, you stay committed. Your word means something. Your integrity matters more than your pleasure. And I'm not just talking about sexual faithfulness, though that's certainly included. I'm talking about being faithful in all your relationships, being trustworthy, being reliable, being someone whose yes means yes and whose no means no. You shall not steal, because what belongs to someone else isn't yours to take, and this includes more than just physical property. It includes credit for someone else's work. It includes someone else's reputation. It includes their time, their peace, their dignity. Don't take what you haven't earned. Don't rob people of what's rightfully theirs. You shall not give false testimony, because truth matters, reality matters. You don't get to make up your own facts. You don't get to bear false witness against your neighbor just because it benefits you. Lies destroy trust. Lies poison communities. Lies break down the very fabric of society. So speak truth, even when it costs you, even when the lie would be easier, even when honesty makes you vulnerable. You shall not covet. Don't desire your neighbor's house, or wife, or servant, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Because coveting is where all the other sins start. It's the root that produces the poisonous fruit. When you want what someone else has, when you're consumed with envy, when you can't be happy with what I've given you, that's when you start breaking all the other commandments. You start stealing. You start lying. You start destroying. So learn to be content. Learn to trust that I've given you exactly what you need. Learn to celebrate others' blessings instead of resenting them. These commandments, they weren't restrictions. They were the framework for freedom. They were the guardrails that keep you on the road instead of careening off the cliff. They were my gift to my people, my instruction manual for how to live well, how to thrive. And alongside the commandments, I gave detailed instructions for worship, how to build the tabernacle, a sacred tent where my presence would dwell, how to make the Ark of the Covenant a golden chest that would contain the tablets of the law, a jar of manna, and Aaron's staff. How to craft the lampstand, the table for the bread of the presence, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offering, every measurement specified, every material prescribed, every color chosen for a reason. Why all the detail? Because I wanted to dwell among them. I wanted my presence to be tangible, visible, accessible. The tabernacle wasn't just a religious building. It was my house in the middle of their camp. It was the physical manifestation of the truth that I don't just lead from a distance. I live among my people. I make my home with you. The tabernacle had layers, an outer courtyard where sacrifices were made, a holy place where priests ministered daily, and an inner sanctuary, the most holy place, where the Ark of the Covenant sat and where my presence dwelled most intensely. Only the high priest could enter that space, and only once a year, on the Day of Atonement. Because my holiness isn't casual. My presence isn't something to approach carelessly. There's a reverence required, a recognition that you're stepping into sacred space. But here's what I want you to understand. All of that, the tabernacle, the sacrifices, the priesthood, the rituals, was pointing forward. It was a shadow of something greater. It was preparing them for a day when my presence wouldn't be confined to a tent. A day when the barrier between the holy and the common would be torn down. A day when you wouldn't need a priest to mediate between us, because the ultimate high priest would make a way for you to come directly to me. But we're getting ahead of the story. In the wilderness, the tabernacle was everything. When it was set up, a cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord filled it. Moses couldn't even enter, because my glory was so intense. Whenever the cloud lifted from above the tabernacle, the Israelites would set out. But if the cloud didn't lift, they didn't set out. They waited, sometimes for a day, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months. They waited until I moved. Can you imagine that kind of surrender? That kind of trust? Not being able to plan ahead, not knowing if you'd be packing up tomorrow or staying put for the next 6 months. Just watching the cloud, following the cloud, living in complete dependence on my timing. That's what I'm inviting you into. Not a life of uncertainty and anxiety, but a life of watchful trust. A life where you're so attuned to my presence that you can sense when it's time to move and when it's time to stay, where you're not driven by your own agenda but by my leading. The Israelites spent 40 years in that wilderness, a journey that could have taken 11 days, stretched into 4 decades. Why? Because they weren't ready, because they needed to learn to trust me, because a generation that had grown up in slavery needed to die off before a generation that knew only freedom could enter the promised land. It sounds harsh, but it was mercy. They weren't capable of conquering enemies and establishing a nation. They were too broken, too traumatized, too shaped by slavery. But their children, the ones born in the wilderness, the ones who grew up eating manna and watching the cloud and hearing stories of the Red Sea, they were different. They knew me as provider, as leader, as the one who kept his promises. They weren't haunted by memories of Egyptian taskmasters. They were formed in freedom, and when the time came, they were ready. During those 40 years, I provided everything they needed. Their clothes didn't wear out. Their feet didn't swell. When they were bitten by poisonous snakes because of their grumbling, I told Moses to make a bronze snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who looked at it would be healed. When they needed meat, I sent quail. When they needed water, I brought it from rocks. When they needed guidance, I gave them my law. When they needed my presence, I filled the tabernacle with my glory. They lacked nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's my promise to you tonight. As you rest, as you release control, as you stop trying to figure everything out, I will provide everything you need. Not necessarily everything you want, not necessarily on your timeline, but everything you actually need to walk through this season and come out the other side stronger, wiser, more dependent on me, and less dependent on yourself. The wilderness isn't forever. It feels like it sometimes. When you're in the middle of it, when there's no end in sight, when every day looks the same as the day before, it feels eternal. But it's not. It's temporary. It's seasonal. It's purposeful. And when it's over, when you finally step into your promised land, you'll look back and realize that the wilderness was where I did my deepest work in you. It was where I stripped away everything you were trusting in besides me. It was where I taught you that manna is enough, that daily bread is sufficient, that you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to follow the cloud. Now let me shift to some truths. I want to settle deep into your bones as you sleep tonight. Some lessons that will hopefully change not just your rest tonight, but the way you live tomorrow. First truth: deliverance takes time, but it's always coming. I know you're tired of waiting. I know you've been praying for breakthrough, and it feels like nothing's happening. I know you're tempted to believe that maybe I've forgotten, maybe I don't care, maybe this is just how life is going to be from now on. But listen, the Israelites waited 400 years, 400 years of silence, 400 years of slavery, 400 years of unanswered prayers, and then, in a single year, everything changed. The plagues, the Passover, the Red Sea, the wilderness, the law, the tabernacle, everything they'd been waiting for happened in rapid succession once I started moving. Your deliverance might look like that too. A long season of waiting, and then suddenly breakthrough after breakthrough. Or it might be gradual, one small victory at a time, one tiny shift in perspective, one gentle healing of an old wound. Either way, it's coming. I promise you. Waiting doesn't mean abandonment. Delay doesn't mean denial. What looks like me dragging my feet is actually me positioning every piece exactly where it needs to be for the perfect moment. Trust my timing. It's better than yours. Second truth: your past doesn't define your future. The Israelites were slaves. That was their identity for centuries. Slave was their name, their label, their box. And even after they were physically free, they kept thinking like slaves. They kept talking like slaves. They kept wanting to go back to slavery because at least it was familiar. Breaking physical chains is one thing. Breaking mental and emotional chains is another. You might be free from the situation that hurt you, but you're still carrying the beliefs it taught you. You're still hearing the voices it implanted in your head. You're still living like you're trapped even though the door is wide open. I don't see you as your past. I see you as your destiny. I see you as who you're becoming, not who you've been. And I'm inviting you to start seeing yourself through my eyes. You're not defined by what was done to you. Every sleep is a small death. Every morning is a resurrection. You're being remade. Right now, as you lie here, old things are passing away. New things are coming. Can you feel it? That subtle shift in your spirit? That quiet hope rising? That's me, working, transforming, setting you free from the inside out. Third truth: provision is my nature, not your achievement. Stop trying so hard. Stop striving. Stop believing the lie that if you just work a little harder, worry a little more, control a little tighter, everything will be okay. It won't, because peace doesn't come from your effort. Provision doesn't come from your hustle. Rest doesn't come from checking every item off your to-do list. It comes from me. I provided manna in the wilderness. They didn't plant it. They didn't harvest it. They didn't earn it. They just gathered it. Every single morning, it was there, a gift, grace in edible form. That's how I work. I give you what you need when you need it. Not because you're good enough, or smart enough, or disciplined enough. Just because you're mine. Just because I'm your father, and fathers feed their children. You're worried about tomorrow. But tomorrow isn't here yet, and when it arrives, the manna will arrive with it. I'm asking you to gather only what you need for today, just today. Don't try to stockpile grace for next week's anxiety. Don't try to hoard peace for future crises. Receive what I'm giving you right now, in this moment, and trust that tomorrow's provision will come tomorrow. Fourth truth, my presence is your protection. The Israelites had enemies, hostile nations who wanted to destroy them, wild animals in the desert, internal conflicts and rebellions, but I was there. The pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night. My presence went before them, behind them, above them. It surrounded them completely, and as long as they stayed close to my presence, they were safe. When they wandered off, when they tried to do things their own way, that's when they got into trouble. But when they stayed near the tabernacle, near the ark, near the cloud of my glory, nothing could touch them. The same is true for you. Right now, my presence is surrounding you. You can't see it with your physical eyes, but it's more real than the bed you're lying on, more solid than the walls around you, more dependable than anything in this physical world. And as long as you stay close to me, as long as you're abiding in my presence, you're protected. The enemy can't penetrate this space. Fear can't break through. Anxiety can't invade. You're safe, completely, totally, utterly safe. So close your eyes. Let your guard down. You don't need to stay vigilant. I'm keeping watch. I never sleep. I never get distracted. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Fifth truth. Fear is information, not instruction. The Israelites were afraid all the time. At the Red Sea, they were afraid of the Egyptians. In the wilderness, they were afraid of starvation. At the border of the Promised Land, they were afraid of the giants. Fear isn't sin. It's not a spiritual failure. It's just information. It tells you that you're facing something bigger than you, something you can't handle on your own. And that's actually accurate information. You can't handle it on your own. You were never meant to. The problem isn't feeling afraid. The problem is letting fear lead. The problem is letting fear make your decisions. The problem is obeying fear instead of obeying me. When the spies came back from Canaan and reported giants in the land, the people believed the fear instead of believing my promise. They said, "We can't do this. It's too hard. We're going to die." And because they believed the fear, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 more years. An entire generation died because they let fear be their instructor instead of just their informant. So tonight, acknowledge your fear. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't spiritualize it away. Just say, "Okay, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of this situation at work. I'm afraid of this diagnosis. I'm afraid of this relationship. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of the future." Name it, own it, and then hand it to me. Say, "I feel this fear, but I'm not going to let it drive. I'm going to let you lead. I'm going to trust your promise, even though my feelings are screaming danger." That's courage. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to follow me despite the fear. Sixth truth. Complaining is human. Provision is divine. I didn't punish the Israelites for complaining. I know that sounds surprising, but it's true. They complained constantly. About water, about food, about Moses, about me, about the journey, about everything. And yes, there were consequences sometimes for their unbelief. But most of the time, I just answered their needs. They said, "We're thirsty." I gave them water. They said, "We're hungry." I gave them manna. They said, "We want meat." I gave them quail. I didn't wait for them to have perfect faith or a grateful attitude. I just provided. Because I know you're human. I know you're tired. I know this is hard. I'm not expecting you to be a superhero. I'm not demanding that you have unshakable faith and constant gratitude. I'd love that, obviously. It would make things easier for you, but I'm not withholding my help until you reach some spiritual maturity threshold. I'm meeting you where you are. Complaints and all. Doubts and all. Mess and all. So if you're lying here thinking, I shouldn't be struggling with this, I should be over this by now, I should be stronger than this, stop. Just stop. You're human. You're allowed to struggle. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to complain to me. I can handle it. What I'm asking you to do is bring it to me instead of letting it poison you. Instead of letting complaint turn into bitterness, instead of letting frustration turn into resentment, just give it to me. Tell me what hurts. Tell me what's hard. Tell me what you need. I'm listening, and I'm answering. Now let me give you some practical ways to carry these truths into your daily life. Some simple practices that will help you live more like someone who's been delivered and less like someone who's still enslaved. Practice 1. The morning manna ritual. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you think about your to-do list, before you dive into the demands of the day, pause. Just for 60 seconds. Ask me, what do I need today? Just today. Not next week. Not next month. Just today. Listen for one word, one thought, one whisper of direction. Maybe it's a word like rest, or courage, or patience. Maybe it's a specific verse. Maybe it's just a sense of my presence. Whatever it is, receive it. Gather it. That's your manna for the day. And then, as the day unfolds, when you start to feel overwhelmed or anxious, come back to that word. Come back to that truth. Remind yourself, this is what God gave me for today. This is enough. You're not learning a technique here. You're learning to receive. You're retraining your brain to look to me first instead of last. You're starting each day in dependence instead of striving. Practice 2. The Red Sea Prayer. When you feel trapped, when anxiety starts rising, when you can't see a way forward, when you're backed up against an impossible situation, pause. Before you panic, before you spiral, before you try to figure it out yourself, speak this prayer out loud or in your heart. Lord, I'm at the edge of something impossible. I can't see the way through, but you do. Part the waters, make the path. I'm standing still, watching for your salvation. This isn't magic words. This isn't a formula. It's realignment. You're reminding yourself of who I am and who you are. You're stepping back from the driver's seat and letting me take the wheel. You're choosing trust over terror. And you need to practice this in the small things so it becomes instinct in the big things. Practice it in traffic. Practice it when your kid is having a meltdown. Practice it when you're running late. Practice it when you get an unexpected bill. Stand still. Watch. Trust. Over time, this will become your default response instead of panic. Practice 3. The wilderness perspective. When life feels like wandering, when you're in a season that doesn't make sense, when you can't see the purpose, ask yourself this question. What am I learning here that I couldn't learn in comfort? Because I promise you, there's something, some character quality being formed, some false belief being exposed, some capacity being developed. The wilderness isn't random. It's not punishment. It's preparation. So look for my provision in unexpected places. A kind word from a stranger, a sudden idea that solves a problem, a moment of peace in the middle of chaos, a laugh when you thought you'd forgotten how. Keep track of these. Write them down if you can. This is retraining your brain from scarcity to sufficiency. From, I don't have enough, to I have what I need today. It's building resilience through remembering. Practice 4. The Passover Rest. Once a week, declare a Sabbath, a full stop, no work, no productivity, no checking email or solving problems or planning your next move, just rest. Radical, complete, guilt-free rest. Sleep longer, move slower, be present with the people you love. Read something that feeds your soul. Sit in the sun, take a walk, do absolutely nothing. This isn't a luxury, it's a command. Because I designed you to work 6 days and rest 1. That rhythm is built into your biology. Violate it, and you'll break down. But more than that, Sabbath is a declaration of trust. It's you saying, God is still God even when I'm not working. The world doesn't depend on me. I can stop, and everything will be okay. If you can't rest 1 day a week, you don't really believe I'm in control. So practice believing, practice trusting, practice resting. Start with 1 day. Guard it fiercely. Let nothing intrude on it. And watch what happens. Watch how it changes you. Practice 5. The Nightly Review. This is your bookend to the morning manna ritual. Before you sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. First, where did I see you today? Maybe it was in a conversation. Maybe it was in a sunset. Maybe it was in the fact that you got through a hard moment. Recognize my presence. Second, what am I carrying that isn't mine? What worry are you shouldering that I never asked you to carry? What control are you gripping that I've been asking you to release? Name it. Third, what do I need to trust you with tonight? Your health, your kids, your job, your finances, your future. Hand it over. Speak it out loud if you can. I hand this to you. Watch over me. I'm going to sleep now. This becomes your Passover ritual. You're marking your doorpost with trust so fear can't enter. You're declaring that this is sacred space, protected space, rest space. Over time, this will train your mind. Nighttime is for rest, not for rehearsing catastrophe. Nighttime is for release, not for clinging. Nighttime is for trust, not for control. These aren't complicated practices. They're simple, almost too simple, and that's the point. The life I'm inviting you into isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about achieving, it's about receiving. It's not about doing more, it's about trusting more. And trust starts with small steps, with simple practices, with daily choices to turn toward me instead of toward your own understanding. So here we are, at the end of this journey through Exodus. You came to this video exhausted, maybe anxious, possibly desperate for just a few hours of peace. But something has shifted, hasn't it? I can feel it. Can you? That subtle loosening in your chest, that quiet calm spreading through your limbs, that sense that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to carry everything yourself. You've walked with me through the Exodus story, not as a distant history lesson, but as a living pattern of how I work in your life right now. You've heard the promise, I deliver, I provide, I protect, I lead. And most importantly, I never ever leave you to figure it out alone. From bondage to freedom, from the Red Sea to dry ground, from hunger to manna, from darkness to pillars of fire, this is how I move, this is who I am, and this is what I'm doing in your life tonight and every night going forward. So here's what I want you to carry into your dreams and into your waking hours. Let these words sink deep. Let them become part of you. You are not enslaved to your anxiety anymore. You've been delivered. You are not responsible for parting your own seas. I am. You are not going to starve for lack of provision. I feed you daily. You are not wandering lost in the wilderness. I'm leading you home. You are not alone in the dark. I am the light that never burns out. You're not broken. I need you to hear that. You're not broken. You've just been carrying burdens I never asked you to carry. Burdens that were never yours in the first place. The burden of control. The burden of certainty. The burden of having it all figured out. The burden of being strong enough, smart enough, good enough. Put them down. I've got them. All of them. Every single one. Your job isn't to carry the weight of the world. Your job is to follow the cloud, to gather the manna, to trust the process, to rest in my presence. Sleep now. Really sleep. Not that half sleep where part of your brain is still planning and worrying and calculating. Real sleep. Deep sleep. Restorative sleep. The kind of sleep that only comes when you finally let go. When you finally release the illusion of control and remember that I'm God and you're not. Rest now. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let your hands unfold. Let your mind slow down. Trust now. Right now. In this moment. Trust that I'm watching over you. Trust that tomorrow's provision will come tomorrow. Trust that you're safe, you're seen, you're loved, you're mine. If this story brought you peace tonight, would you let me know? Leave a comment below. Even just one word. Even just an emoji. Just so I know you were here. Just so I know this mattered. If you want more nights like this, where scripture becomes a lullaby and truth becomes rest, click that subscribe button. Because there are more stories to tell, more truths to discover, more nights when you'll need to remember that you're not doing this alone, that I'm here, that I'm real, that I keep my promises, but for now, that's enough. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Feel the softness of the pillow under your head. Feel the warmth of the blanket around you. This is safety. This is peace. This is home. The Exodus story is complete, but your story, our story, is still being written. And I promise you, beloved, I promise you with everything I am, the best chapters are ahead. The wilderness is temporary. The promised land is coming, and I'm leading you there. One step at a time, one day at a time, one night of rest at a time. Let me stay with you a little longer. Let me speak more gently into this space as your breathing deepens and your mind quiets, because there are more layers to this story, more truths to unwrap, more comfort to receive. And you have time, all the time you need. There's nowhere you have to be, nothing you have to do. Just rest here with me and let these words wash over you like water. Think about the tabernacle for a moment. That sacred tent in the middle of the camp. Everything about it was intentional. The colors blue and purple and scarlet. The materials gold and silver and bronze. The layout outer court, holy place, most holy place. It was all designed to teach them something about who I am and how they could approach me. The outer court was where the sacrifices happened, where the altar stood, where blood was shed so that sin could be covered, where the bronze basin sat so priests could wash and be clean before entering my presence. The holy place was where daily ministry happened, the table of showbread representing my provision, the golden lampstand representing my light that never goes out, the altar of incense representing prayers rising up to me like fragrant smoke. Every day, priests would enter that space. Every day, they would tend the lamps and burn the incense and replace the bread. It was routine. It was ordinary, but it was sacred, because it was service done in my presence. And then there was the most holy place, the inner sanctuary, separated from the holy place by a thick veil. Inside was only one thing, the Ark of the Covenant, a wooden chest overlaid with gold. Inside the ark were 3 items: the stone tablets with the 10 commandments, representing my law and my covenant; a jar of manna, representing my provision in the wilderness; and Aaron's staff that had budded, representing my chosen leadership and my power to bring life from death. On top of the ark was the mercy seat, a golden lid with 2 cherubim facing each other, their wings spread over the ark. And once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest would enter that space, sprinkle blood on the mercy seat, and I would meet with him there. This is where my presence dwelled most intensely. This is where heaven touched earth. This is where the holy God of the universe made himself accessible to broken, sinful people. Not because they deserved it, not because they earned it, but because I wanted to be with them, because I loved them, because I had delivered them from slavery, and I wanted to dwell among them as their God. Do you see what I was doing? I was teaching them that access to me requires sacrifice, that sin creates separation, that blood must be shed for forgiveness, that you can't just stroll casually into my presence. There's a reverence required, a recognition of who I am and who you are. But I was also teaching them that access is possible, that I want to be approached, that I'm not hiding from them, I'm making a way for them to come near. And all of that, the entire tabernacle system, the sacrifices, the priesthood, the rituals, it was all pointing forward to something greater, to someone greater, to the day when the final sacrifice would be made, and the veil would be torn, and access to me would be opened wide for everyone. Not just high priests, not just once a year, but always, forever, for anyone who wants to come. But in the wilderness, this was revolutionary. This was intimate. This was personal. The God who created the universe, who parted the Red Sea, who rained down manna from heaven, that God wanted to live in a tent in the middle of their camp, wanted to be that close, wanted to be that accessible. It's almost too much to take in. The transcendent God becoming immanent, the holy God making himself available, the powerful God choosing vulnerability, choosing proximity, choosing relationship. And tonight, as you rest, I want you to know that I'm that close to you too. You don't need a tabernacle. You don't need a priest to mediate. You don't need to wait for the right day or the right ritual. I'm here, right here, closer than your breath, nearer than your heartbeat. I'm not distant. I'm not removed. I'm not watching from far away. I'm dwelling with you, in you, around you. My presence is filling this space right now, just like my glory filled the tabernacle. And you're safe here, completely safe. Now let me tell you about some of the people in the wilderness. Because the Exodus story isn't just about Moses and Pharaoh and dramatic miracles. It's about real people, ordinary people. People with names and stories and struggles just like you. Take Miriam, for example, Moses' sister. She's the one who, when Moses was a baby in a basket floating down the Nile, followed at a distance to see what would happen. She's the one who bravely approached Pharaoh's daughter and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby, which of course was their own mother. Miriam protected Moses before he was even old enough to know he needed protecting. Later, after the Red Sea crossing, Miriam led the women in a song of celebration. She took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women followed her with tambourines and dancing. And she sang, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea." Picture that moment. Picture this woman who had spent her entire life as a slave, who had watched her people suffer, who had hidden her baby brother in a basket and prayed he would survive. Now she's dancing. Now she's singing. Now she's leading worship. Because freedom produces joy. Deliverance produces celebration. When you finally escape what's been holding you captive, you can't help but dance. But Miriam wasn't perfect. Later in the journey, she and Aaron spoke against Moses because he had married a Cushite woman. They said, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he also spoken through us?" They were jealous. They wanted recognition. They wanted status. And I didn't ignore it. I called all three of them to the tent of meeting and I confronted Miriam and Aaron. I defended Moses. And then my anger burned against them, and I left. And when the cloud lifted from above the tent, Miriam's skin was leprous, white as snow. Aaron cried out to Moses, "Please, my Lord, I ask you not to hold against us the sin we have so foolishly committed. Do not let her be like a stillborn infant coming from its mother's womb with its flesh half eaten away." And Moses, gracious Moses, didn't gloat, didn't say, "I told you so." He cried out to me, "Please, God, heal her." So I said she should be confined outside the camp for 7 days, and then she could be brought back, and the people waited. The entire community waited for Miriam. They didn't move on without her. They stayed until she was healed, until she was clean, until she could rejoin them. I tell you this story because I want you to know that even the heroes of faith mess up. Even the worship leaders struggle with pride. Even the ones who danced at the Red Sea have moments of jealousy and rebellion. And when they do, I deal with it. I correct it. But I also heal it. I restore them. I bring them back. Your sin doesn't disqualify you. Your mistakes don't erase your identity. Your failures don't cancel my love. I discipline those I love, not to destroy them, but to grow them, not to shame them, but to shape them. Or consider Caleb and Joshua. When the Israelites reached the border of the Promised Land, Moses sent 12 spies, one leader from each tribe, to scout it out. They were gone for 40 days. When they came back, they reported that the land really did flow with milk and honey. They brought back fruit to prove it, a single cluster of grapes so large it took 2 men to carry it on a pole between them. The land was everything I had promised: abundant, fertile, rich. But 10 of the 12 spies said, "We can't attack those people. They're stronger than we are. There are giants there. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them." The people heard this report, and they wept aloud. They said, "If only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" And they actually said to each other, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." Can you imagine? After everything, after the plagues and the Passover and the Red Sea and the manna and the water from the rock and the law on Sinai and my presence in the cloud and fire and tabernacle, after all of that, they wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted to choose a different leader and return to slavery, because fear distorted their perception so badly that slavery looked safer than trusting me. But Joshua and Caleb had a different spirit. They tore their clothes in grief and said to the whole assembly, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land and give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them." 2 voices of faith versus 10 voices of fear. 2 men who saw the same giants, but came to a different conclusion. Not because they were braver or stronger, but because they trusted me more. They believed my promise was bigger than any obstacle. They believed my presence was more powerful than any enemy. And because of their faith, because of their trust, they were the only ones from that generation who eventually entered the Promised Land. Everyone else died in the wilderness. But Caleb and Joshua got to see the fulfillment of my promise. What's the difference between faith and fear? It's not that faith doesn't see the obstacles. Joshua and Caleb saw the giants. They didn't deny reality. They didn't pretend the challenges weren't real. But they saw me too. They saw me bigger than the giants. They saw my promise as more certain than their circumstances. Fear focuses on the problem and forgets the promise keeper. Faith acknowledges the problem but focuses on the promise keeper. Tonight, you're probably lying here with some giants in your life. Some problems that seem insurmountable. Some challenges that feel too big. And I'm not asking you to pretend they're not there. I'm asking you to see me too. To remember that the one who brought you this far isn't going to abandon you now. To trust that my promise is more reliable than your fear. You don't have to be a grasshopper in your own eyes. You don't have to shrink back from what I'm calling you to. You can be like Caleb and Joshua. You can have a different spirit. You can say, yes, there are giants, but the Lord is with me. His protection is over me. I don't have to be afraid. Let me also tell you about Aaron, Moses' brother, his spokesperson, the one who did the talking when Moses felt inadequate. Aaron was with Moses through every confrontation with Pharaoh, every plague, every miracle. He saw it all up close. And then, while Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the law, the people grew impatient. Moses had been gone for 40 days, and they didn't know what had happened to him. So they came to Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." And Aaron, instead of standing firm, instead of reminding them of who I am and what I'd done, gave in. He said, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So they did. And Aaron took the gold, melted it down, and fashioned it into an idol shaped like a calf. And the people said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." They built an altar in front of it and celebrated with sacrifices and revelry. I looked down and saw what they were doing. My anger burned. I said to Moses, "Go down, because your people have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them. They have made themselves an idol. I have seen these people, and they are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone, so that my anger may burn against them, and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation." But Moses pleaded with me. He interceded. He reminded me of my promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I relented. I didn't destroy them. Moses went down the mountain, carrying the 2 tablets of the covenant law. When he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, he threw down the tablets in anger, and they broke. He burned the calf in the fire, ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. Then he confronted Aaron. "What did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin?" And Aaron, instead of taking responsibility, made excuses. "You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, 'Make us gods.' So I told them to give me their gold. And when I threw it into the fire, out came this calf, as if it just happened by itself, as if he bore no responsibility. But here's what I want you to see. Even after this massive failure, Aaron was still the high priest. He still served in the tabernacle. He still entered my presence. Because one sin, even a big one, doesn't define your entire life. Aaron messed up catastrophically. He led the people into idolatry, but he was also the one who later stood between the living and the dead with his censer of burning incense, stopping a plague. He was the one whose staff budded with almonds, confirming my choice of him as priest. He was the one who, despite his failure, continued to serve me faithfully. You need to hear this. You're not disqualified. That thing you did that you're ashamed of, that mistake you can't stop replaying in your mind, that failure that haunts you, it doesn't have to define you. I can still use you. I can still work through you. I can still call you into purpose. Your past sin doesn't cancel your future calling. Aaron's story proves it. Now let me speak to something else. Something tender. The way I provided for them in the wilderness wasn't just functional, it was relational. Every morning when the manna appeared, it was like I was saying, "Good morning, I see you. I know you're hungry. Here's breakfast." Every evening when the quail came, it was like I was saying, "I heard your request. I'm giving you what you asked for." When water flowed from the rock, it was like I was saying, "I know you're thirsty. Drink. Be satisfied." And the way it appeared with the dew in the morning, this mysterious bread from heaven that no one had seen before, it kept them dependent on me. They couldn't harvest it in advance. They couldn't store it up except for the Sabbath. They had to trust that tomorrow morning it would be there again. Day after day after day for 40 years, it was there. I never missed a day. I never forgot them. I never said, "You know what? I'm tired of providing manna. Figure it out yourselves." No. Every single morning, faithful as the sunrise, the manna appeared. Do you know what that means for you? It means I'm that faithful, that consistent, that attentive to your needs. You might wake up tomorrow and think, "I don't know how I'm going to get through this day." But the manna will be there. The grace for that day will arrive with that day. The strength you need will be provided when you need it. Not a week early so you can stockpile it. Not a day late so you have to panic. Right on time. Just enough. Perfectly sufficient. And here's another layer. The manna tasted like wafers made with honey. It was sweet. It was pleasant. My provision for you isn't just adequate, it's good. It's enjoyable. I don't give you just barely enough to survive. I give you enough to thrive. There's sweetness in my provision. There's joy in my care. Even in the wilderness, even in the hard season, even in the waiting, there's honey, there's goodness, there's reason to savor each bite instead of just choking it down. Think about the pillar of cloud and fire. Why both? Why not just one? Because they needed different things at different times. During the day, the cloud provided shade from the brutal desert sun. It kept them cool. It gave them relief from the heat. At night, the fire gave them light so they wouldn't stumble in the dark. It gave them warmth when the desert got cold. It gave them security, knowing that they could see any danger approaching. I adapted my presence to their needs. I met them where they were. I gave them exactly what they required in each moment. That's how I work with you too. Sometimes you need shade. Sometimes you need light. Sometimes you need cooling. Sometimes you need warmth. Sometimes you need me to be gentle and quiet. Sometimes you need me to be bold and obvious. And I know which is which. I know what you need before you know it yourself. So I show up in the form you need. I'm not rigid. I'm not distant. I'm responsive. I'm present. I'm paying attention. Let me tell you about another moment in the wilderness. A moment that might seem small, but it's actually profound. The Israelites came to Rephidim, and Moses struck the rock, and water came out. But there's more to that story. Before he struck the rock, the people were quarreling with him. They were saying, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But they were thirsty and they grumbled. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Moses was at his breaking point. He cried out to me, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." And I said, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it." Notice what I said. I will stand there before you by the rock. I wasn't asking Moses to go alone. I wasn't sending him into danger without protection. I was going with him. I was standing with him, in front of the people who were ready to stone him. Between him and the threat, I was his shield, his defense, his protector. And when Moses struck the rock, water gushed out. Not a trickle, not a small stream. It gushed. It poured out abundantly, enough for millions of people and all their livestock, from a rock, in the middle of the desert, where there should be no water at all, because I specialize in bringing life from the most unlikely places, in making streams in the wasteland, in providing abundantly where there's nothing. Later, much later, the Apostle Paul would write about this moment and say that rock was Christ, that the water that flowed from it was a picture of the living water that would flow from the Messiah, that even in the wilderness, even in the Old Testament, I was pointing forward to the greater provision that was coming, the provision that would satisfy not just physical thirst, but spiritual thirst, the provision that would be not just for 40 years, but for eternity. I'm telling you all this because I want you to see the layers. I want you to see how every moment in the wilderness was teaching them something, showing them something, preparing them for something. It wasn't random. It wasn't wasted time. It was formation. It was relationship. It was me revealing myself to them in 1,000 different ways, so that by the time they entered the promised land, they would know me, really know me, not just know about me, not just have heard stories, but know me from personal experience, know me as provider, as protector, as leader, as the one who keeps his promises. And that's what I'm doing in your wilderness too. I'm not just killing time until you get to the next season. I'm teaching you, showing you who I am, revealing myself in ways you couldn't see in the comfort and ease. The wilderness is where you learn to recognize my voice, where you learn to distinguish my leading from your own thoughts, where you learn to trust me when there's nothing else to trust, where you learn that I'm enough, that my presence is sufficient, that you don't need to see the full plan as long as you can see the next step. Let me talk about the tabernacle a little more, because there's so much here. When it was finally completed, exactly according to my specifications, Moses inspected everything. He saw that they had done it just as I commanded. So Moses blessed them, and then he erected the tabernacle. He set up the bases, placed the frames, inserted the crossbars, and set up the posts. He spread the tent over the tabernacle and put the covering over the tent. He took the testimony, the tablets of the law, and placed them in the ark. He attached the poles to the ark and put the atonement cover on top of it. Then he brought the ark into the tabernacle and hung the shielding curtain and shielded the ark of the covenant law. He placed the table in the tent of meeting and set out the bread on it before the Lord. He placed the lampstand and set up the lamps before the Lord. He placed the gold altar in the tent of meeting in front of the curtain and burned fragrant incense on it. He set up the curtain at the entrance to the tabernacle. He set the altar of burnt offering near the entrance and offered on it burnt offerings and grain offerings. He placed the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it for washing. Every detail attended to, every item in its proper place, everything done exactly as I had instructed. And then, the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and my glory filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. My presence was so intense, so overwhelming, that even Moses couldn't go in. The weight of my glory, the brightness of my holiness, the power of my presence, it filled that space completely. And from that moment on, whenever the cloud lifted from above the tabernacle, the Israelites set out. But if the cloud did not lift, they did not set out. They waited. Sometimes the cloud stayed over the tabernacle for only a few days, sometimes for a month, sometimes longer. And the people waited. They organized their entire lives around my presence, not around their plans, not around their schedules, not around what seemed efficient or convenient, around me. Can you imagine living like that? Can you imagine the trust it would require? Not knowing when you're going to move next, not knowing where you're going to end up, not knowing how long you'll be in any one place, just watching the cloud, following the cloud, living in complete surrender to my timing and my leading. That's the life I'm inviting you into. Not a life of chaos and uncertainty, but a life of watchful trust. A life where you're so attuned to my presence that you can sense when it's time to move and when it's time to stay. You're probably lying here thinking about all the decisions you have to make, all the things you're trying to figure out, all the timing questions that keep you up at night. Should I take this job or wait for something else? Should I have this conversation or give it more time? Should I make this investment or play it safe? Should I pursue this relationship or back off? And I'm saying to you, watch the cloud. Pay attention to my presence. Don't move just because you're impatient. Don't stay just because you're afraid. Move when I move. Stay when I stay. It's simpler than you think. It just requires paying attention. Now let me tell you what happened when they finally reached the promised land. 40 years after leaving Egypt, 40 years after the Red Sea, a new generation stood at the border. The generation that had doubted and feared had died in the wilderness. Their children, now adults, seasoned by the wilderness, trained in trust, were ready. Moses, now 120 years old, was not going to enter with them. I had told him this. He would see it from a distance, but Joshua would lead them across. Before he died, Moses gave them a final charge. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you, nor forsake you. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, across from Jericho, and I showed him the whole land. I said to him, This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it. And there on the mountain, Moses died. I buried him in Moab, but to this day no one knows where his grave is. His eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. The Israelites grieved for him 30 days. And then Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him. The new leader was ready. The people were ready. The time had come. I said to Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. And they crossed over. After 40 years of wilderness, they crossed the Jordan River on dry ground, just like they had crossed the Red Sea 40 years earlier. I stopped the flow of the river so they could walk across. One generation began with a water miracle. The next generation began with a water miracle. Because I'm consistent, I'm faithful. What I did once, I can do again. What I promised then, I fulfill now. The point of this whole story, from beginning to end, is this: I deliver, I provide, I protect, I lead, I keep my promises, always, without fail, even when it takes 40 years, even when the path is longer than you expected, even when you have to wander in the wilderness, even when you make mistakes along the way, even when you doubt and complain and mess up. I don't give up on you. I don't abandon the work I've started. I finish what I begin. And tonight, as your body grows heavy and your mind grows quiet, I want you to rest in this truth. The same God who led them out of Egypt is leading you out of whatever enslaves you. The same God who parted the Red Sea is making a way through your impossible situation. The same God who provided manna in the wilderness is providing for you daily. The same God who dwelt in the tabernacle is dwelling with you right now. The same God who brought them into the promised land is bringing you into yours. Your wilderness isn't forever. Your waiting isn't meaningless. Your struggle isn't evidence that I've forgotten you. It's the path to your freedom. It's the road to your rest. It's the way through to your promised land. And I'm with you every step. In the cloud, in the fire, in the manna, in the water from the rock, in the mercy seat, in the presence that fills the holy place. I'm here. I've always been here, and I'm not leaving. So let go now. Really let go. Stop trying to figure it all out. Stop carrying the weight. Stop believing the lie that if you don't hold it all together, everything will fall apart. I'm holding it together. I'm carrying the weight. I'm God, and you're not. And that's the best news you've heard all day. Sleep now. Deep, restful, healing sleep. The kind that only comes when you finally stop striving and start trusting. The kind that washes over you like water, like grace, like the gentlest rain after the longest drought. Your body is relaxing. Your muscles are releasing. Your jaw is unclenching. Your shoulders are dropping. Your breathing is slowing. This is good. This is right. This is how it's supposed to be. You're safe here, protected here, loved here. You're not alone. You've never been alone. Even in your darkest moments, even in your deepest struggles, even in your worst failures, I was there, carrying you on eagle's wings, fighting your battles, parting your seas, providing your manna, guiding your steps. And tomorrow, when you wake up, the manna will be there again. The grace for tomorrow will arrive with tomorrow. You don't have to worry about it tonight. You don't have to plan for it, or prepare for it, or figure it out in advance. You just have to sleep, just rest, just trust, because the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Good night, beloved child. Sleep well. Sleep deep. Sleep safe. Sleep free. You are protected by the blood on the doorpost. You are guided by the pillar of fire. You are fed by the manna from heaven. You are carried on eagle's wings. You are held in the palm of my hand. Nothing can snatch you away. Nothing can separate you from my love. Not death, not life, not angels, not demons, not the present, not the future, not any powers, not height, not depth, not anything in all creation can separate you from my love. So rest in that truth. Rest in me. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. In peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. Close your eyes now. Breathe deeply. Feel the peace washing over you like water. I'm here. I'm watching. I'm never leaving. You're safe. You're loved. You're mine. Rest now. Just rest. Sleep now. The journey continues tomorrow. But tonight, you simply rest in me. Sleep deeply, beloved. Tomorrow we walk together again. But tonight, you are carried, held, kept, safe in my arms forever. Good night. And as you close your eyes, remember the night before deliverance. Remember how the children of Israel laid down in their homes, while the winds of judgment passed over. The moon hung silent. The streets were still, but the doors were marked with blood. The cry of Egypt rose through the night, but the people under my covenant slept in peace. So too shall you rest under the covenant of grace. The destroyer cannot touch what I have sealed. The night may be long, but the dawn is promised. The chains that once held you tremble at my command. The sea that blocked your path waits for my breath. Lie down, beloved, as Israel did, their sandals ready, their hearts trembling, yet trusting. For I am the God who makes a way where there is no way. I am the voice that parts the waters. I am the hand that draws back the tide and leads my people through on dry ground. Sleep, and know that deliverance is not delayed, it is prepared. The Red Sea still listens when I speak. The winds still obey when I call them to move for you. You are not forgotten in the wilderness. When you wake and find yourself among the sands, do not fear. The wilderness is not your punishment, it is your preparation. The manna will appear in the morning. The water will flow from the rock. The cloud will cover you by day, and the fire will warm you by night. You will not lack. You will not be forsaken. The same hand that led them leads you still. Rest, for I am your exodus. I am your deliverance from every bondage that bound you. I am your freedom from Pharaoh's grip. I am your path through the impossible sea. I am your pillar of cloud that hides you from your pursuers. I am your pillar of fire that lights the night of your uncertainty. Rest, for I am both your escape and your destination. You have wandered long enough in fear. Lay down your burdens now. The sand beneath you is holy, for I am here. I am the voice that called to Moses from the bush that burned and was not consumed. I am the same I am who calls you now by name. Take off your sandals of striving. Lay down your yoke of worry. Rest your head upon my promise. For I will go before you, and I will be your rear guard. Do not fear the tomorrow you cannot see. When morning comes, the pillar will rise again, and you will follow where I lead. I will bring you through the barren lands, to the place of my promise. You will drink from springs you did not dig, and eat from trees you did not plant, for I have gone ahead of you to prepare your rest. Sleep, child of covenant. You are not the slave you once were. Egypt is behind you. The chains are broken. The taskmaster's whips can no longer reach you. The waters that parted to free you have closed upon your enemies. What once pursued you lies silent beneath the sea. Sleep now in the shadow of my wings. The wilderness wind cannot harm you. The serpents of fear cannot strike you. For I have given my angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. When you stumble, they will lift you up. When you faint, they will strengthen you. You are surrounded by the unseen host of heaven. Rest, my child, in the assurance that I am your provider. The same God who rained bread from heaven will not let you hunger. The same God who poured water from the rock will not let you thirst. I will feed your soul with my word and fill your heart with peace that surpasses understanding. I will lead you beside still waters and restore your soul. Sleep, beloved, in the rhythm of my faithfulness. For the night is but a passing shadow, and joy comes with the morning. When you awake, you will find new mercies waiting for you. My compassion does not fail. It is renewed with every sunrise. You are not alone in the journey. As I was with Moses, so I am with you. As I stretched out my hand over the sea for him, I stretch it out now over your life. As I guided him by cloud and fire, I guide you by my spirit and my word. When you cannot see the way, trust that I am already there, making the crooked paths straight. And if you find yourself weary, remember, even in the wilderness, I tabernacle among my people. My presence dwells not in walls of gold, but in hearts that trust me. You are my dwelling place. Even as you sleep, I am within you, speaking peace, restoring hope, renewing strength. Be still, my child, Let the weight of the day fall from your shoulders. The burdens of the world were never meant for you to carry alone. I bore them already upon the cross. The yoke I give you is easy, and the burden I give you is light. So release it now. Every anxiety, every memory of Egypt, every fear of tomorrow, give it into my hands, for I have already gone before you, and I will never lead you where my grace cannot keep you. When you sleep tonight, I will surround you as I surrounded Israel. I will stand guard over your home. I will watch over your thoughts. I will give rest to your spirit. I will whisper to your heart the songs of deliverance. And in the stillness of the night, I will remind your soul of who I am, your Redeemer, your refuge, your rest. Let the sound of your breath join the rhythm of my creation. The stars keep their watch because I command them. The sea stays in its boundary because I set it. The earth turns through the night because I sustain it. So too do I sustain you. You need not strive to hold yourself together. I am the one holding you. Remember how I brought Israel out not by their strength, but by my might, not by their wisdom, but by my word, not by their plans, but by my promise. The same deliverance that carried them carries you. The same covenant that covered them covers you. When the morning comes, you will walk again. The desert will not last forever. The path of obedience will lead you to the land I promised. You will eat of my goodness and drink of my joy. But for now, rest. For even in rest, I am working. Even in silence, I am speaking. Even in stillness, I am moving mountains on your behalf. Sleep in the faith that the same God who opened the Red Sea will open doors before you. Sleep in the hope that the same God who rained manna will provide what you need in due season. Sleep in the trust that the same God who led Israel to the promised land will finish the good work he began in you. Fear not the night, for I am in it. Fear not the silence, for my voice is near. Fear not the unknown, for my plan is sure. I have written your days in my book, and not one of them is without purpose. The same hand that wrote the law upon stone writes, my promises upon your heart. Lay down, child of freedom. Let your spirit find Sabbath in me. The work is done. The deliverance is accomplished. The sea is behind you, the promise before you, and I am in the midst of you. As you drift into sleep, know this: the God who neither slumbers nor sleeps watches over you. The one who called light from darkness now commands peace to fill your night. The one who led Israel by night and by day now leads you by grace and truth. Sleep, beloved, in the arms of eternity. You are my child, my creation, my redeemed, my delight. And when you wake, the morning will greet you with mercy. The sun will rise upon your hope, and I will still be here, waiting to walk with you once more. For I am the Lord your God who delivers you out of bondage, who parts your sea, who provides your bread, who guides your steps, who shelters your rest, and who loves you with an everlasting love. Sleep now, under the shadow of my wings. Dream beneath the cloud of my glory. Rest in the truth that I deliver, I provide, I sustain, and I never fail. Good night, my beloved. Good night, my Israel. Good night, my child of promise. The night is safe because I am in it. The morning will come because I have spoken it. Sleep now, for you are free. And in your freedom, know that I am not far. I am nearer than your next breath, closer than your beating heart. When you lie down, I am the breath that steadies you. When you dream, I am the hand that shields you from the arrows of fear. You have crossed through the waters, child, and the sound of the waves that once threatened to drown you is now the lullaby of my faithfulness. I have brought you out to bring you in, not into striving, not into wandering, but into rest. What once enslaved you cannot command you again. The cords of the oppressor have been broken by my outstretched arm. The taskmasters of your past cannot follow where I have led you. Their voices fade in the distance, silenced beneath the waters of deliverance. Rest, beloved, beneath the banner of my name. I am the Lord who heals you. I am the Lord who provides. I am the Lord who sanctifies. I am the Lord who is your peace. Every name I bear is a promise fulfilled. Every word I have spoken will stand forever. The stars above you are the same that watched over my covenant with Abraham. The same heavens that declared my glory then declare it now over you. You are part of a story older than time, written by the hand that shaped creation. And the story ends not in wandering, but in homecoming, not in hunger, but in feasting, not in exile, but in embrace. Close your eyes, for tonight I encamp around you. The angel of my presence stands watch. The fire burns in the unseen realm, a light no darkness can quench. I am your covering, your shield, your refuge. The terror of the night cannot approach, the pestilence cannot enter, for the blood upon the doorpost still speaks. It cries out better things than fear. It cries mercy. It cries life. It cries mine. You are mine, and I am yours. The covenant is sealed not in ink, but in blood. The same power that broke Pharaoh's heart of stone has broken the chains of your guilt. The same wind that drove the sea apart now drives away your shame. You are clean. You are covered. You are free indeed. Sleep in this knowledge that even in your stillness, I work wonders. Even when your eyes close, I am weaving redemption in the unseen. You are not idle when you rest in me. You are most aligned with heaven's rhythm. For I am not a God of anxiety, but of assurance, not of panic, but of peace. Do you hear the stillness? That is the hush of heaven waiting for dawn. The same dawn that broke over the camp of Israel will break again over you. And when it does, you will rise renewed, strengthened, anointed, ready to walk again through the wilderness, not in fear, but in faith. For the wilderness is not a wasteland to me. It is a sanctuary. It is where I speak softly, away from the noise of Egypt. It is where I train your heart to trust my hand. When you see no food, I will feed you. When you see no water, I will pour rivers in the desert. When you see no path, I will draw one beneath your feet. I am the God of enough, not merely of survival, but of overflow. You will not lack any good thing. The dew will come each morning, and the pillar will rise each day. My glory will not depart from your camp. I will teach you to rest in the rhythm of dependence, to breathe with the pulse of my presence. Do not mourn the past. It was the shadow before the dawn. Do not fear the future. It is the field where my promises will bloom. You are living in the middle of my miracle, even when you do not yet see its end. Lie down in peace, for the word that brought light into chaos now speaks calm into your night. The same voice that called creation from void now calls rest into your soul. Be still, and know that I am God, the same yesterday, today, and forever. Let the rhythm of your heartbeat remind you of my faithfulness steady, constant, unchanging. I am the same who fed 5,000 with a few loaves, who turned water into wine, who silenced storms with a word, and I am the same who whispers to you now, peace, be still, sleep, and while you rest, I will restore what the locust has eaten. I will rebuild what was torn down. I will breathe upon the ashes, and beauty shall rise. You need not see how it is enough to know I am. Do not measure my love by what you understand. My ways are higher, my thoughts deeper. You see the desert, I see the river. that will flow through it. You see the night. I see the sunrise beyond it. You see yourself as weary. I see you as chosen, prepared, destined. Every sigh of your spirit is a prayer I hear. Every tear you hide is gathered in my bottle. Not one falls unnoticed. For I am the God who sees the same who saw Hagar in her wilderness, who called to Moses from the flame, who led a nation with signs and wonders. And I see you now. Sleep, and dream not of Egypt, but of promise. Dream of the land flowing with milk and honey, the land where peace and righteousness dwell. Dream of vineyards you did not plant, of homes you did not build, of rest that cannot be taken from you. For that is where I lead you, to a place prepared, a rest eternal, a peace unbroken. And even as you dream, I am singing over you. My song is older than sorrow, stronger than fear, deeper than the sea you crossed. It is the song of deliverance, the song Miriam sang on the shore, the song David played in the night, the song the redeemed will sing forever. It is the song of "The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation." Do you hear it? The heavens echo its refrain. The wind carries it through the night. The angels join in its harmony. The earth itself hums its truth. The Lord reigns, the Lord provides, the Lord delivers. So sleep, beloved. The night belongs to me. Your story is safe in my hands. Your breath is my melody, your rest my temple. Tomorrow I will wake you with new light. I will open the way once more. The wilderness will not consume you. It will refine you. The journey will not weary you. It will shape you. And when your feet touch the edge of promise, you will know it was never your strength that brought you there, but my mercy. Rest in this assurance. What I begin, I complete. What I promise, I perform. What I deliver, I sustain. The same God who began your exodus will bring you into your Canaan. Sleep now, in the peace of knowing that nothing is wasted. Every step, every silence, every sleepless night that led to this one, all of it was the path of deliverance. You did not lose time. You gained trust. You did not wander in vain. You were led by grace. Now rest. For the journey of faith continues not by striving but by surrender. The same hands that split the sea now cradle your heart. The same fire that led through the night now warms your soul. The same voice that spoke from the mountain now whispers within you. You are mine. I am with you. Rest. Good night, my beloved. The night is holy, for I dwell in it. The silence is sacred, for I fill it. The stars keep their vigil, and I keep you. Sleep, for I have delivered you. Sleep, for I provide for you. Sleep, for I am your God, and you are my child. And when the morning light returns, you will rise, not as one escaping Egypt, but as one walking in promise. You will look back and see the sea closed behind you and before you, the land of milk and honey, the place I have prepared for your rest. Good night, my beloved. Sleep now, for you are free and forever mine.